Okay, I'm in this video and I hate it. I'm in this video and I hate it.
Hey, me, Makari. You joined Discord and Twitch. Hey, thanks, bye.
So there was a video that I got pointed towards the other day, and whether you know about World of Warcraft or not, whether you've been keeping up with it or not, doesn't really matter. It's highly likely that most of you know of World of Warcraft. This is called I Never Played WoW, so I tried all of them by a guy called Jimmy. As always, the link to this entire video will be in the description. It's a bit of a longer one, so I'll try my best to avoid pause champing. And we're all going to have an existential crisis knowing now that World of Warcraft is 20 years old. So let's see what this man has to say about it all.
Players, ones that had parents who... Back in 2005, 2006, there were only two kinds of MMO players. Ones that had parents who believed in them, saw a future in them, and trusted them enough with a $15 a month World of Warcraft subscription. And then you had the ones who...
Okay, I think he's a bit out of base here, because World of Warcraft, back in 2005, the subscription was £8.99 pounds, which would have been $12. I mean, that's still a lot. Like, thinking about games that have subscriptions in this day and age, you got to think about it, right? That's just, like, subscription-based model games do not work in this day and age. People do not have the time to commit to subscription-based games where you also have to pay for the base box price as well. Like, that just does not work. And for multiple different reasons, and I want to explain why this is the case, it does not work because people do not have time. People are far busier now than what they used to be. So people don't have the validation for dedicating $15 a month for a game that they've already paid for. If the game was free, maybe. If the game was free and the subscription was like how Elder Scrolls does, where it just gives you a bit of extra little benefits here or there, that might still be viable. But to actually be able to even play the game on top of a box price set, the only games that get away with this are those who are grandfathered into this mentality. The fact that World of Warcraft is capable of doing this is only because they have the lineage to do so. Same thing with Final Fantasy XIV. They only get away with it because they were doing it back when it was viable, and everyone's just kind of agreed that that's the way it is. Any new MMO that comes out that you cannot have a subscription, you cannot make it... maybe a base box price would work, but a subscription, nah, doesn't work. If you do a subscription now, you kill your game. People can't validate that for a game they don't know they can invest that kind of time into.
Heard something along
Not to
the
mention,
lines
people
of
just don't want to spend that money
$15
monthly
a
either.
month? Did you say a month? Go to your room. And me?
Just want to put that out there. If you've played World of Warcraft, you want to have an existential crisis, go back into your subscription history and count up how much money you've spent on a subscription for these games. I'm thinking about that right now, and I want to end this video so I can cry in a corner.
I was in that second.
Keeping in mind, I have roughly 15,000 hours in World of Warcraft, so I'll let you do the calculations on that one.
But you know what? I clawed and scratched my way to a $6 a month subscription.
Ah, yes, in RuneScape, a ball game.
In a lot of ways, RuneScape has become a part of me, teaching me life lessons.
But then again, you can also farm for the premium subscriptions in these games just by playing them. It's the validation of time or money.
Experience that $15
You spend time,
path, but
or you spend your money.
I think this might be the greatest $6 my mother ever spent. But I have always wondered, what if she...
That is the truest thing that ever true. When I first subscribed to World of Warcraft, I would beg and plead to my mother to get me a subscription. And my mum paid for the first 2 months of my subscription to World of Warcraft because I would do chores and I'd do all that kind of stuff. And I have to be very careful because I think my mum might be watching the stream right now. But a lot of the time, I would ask my mum if she could buy me something. And she'd be like, oh yeah. Or dad would I'd ask my dad to buy me something. Like, I don't know, a t-shirt or something from town. And they'd be like, oh yeah, sure, we'll get you that. When do you want to go into town? Like, oh, don't worry, mum, dad, I'll just go into town and buy it myself. Just give me the $20 to go and buy it. So what would happen would be they would give me that money, and I wouldn't go and buy the thing. I would just assume that I just made sure that they didn't ask me as to whether I bought the thing or not. I would put that money into my bank, and I would use that money to pay for my subscription.
She did make that $15 sacrifice. You know, where would I be? Who would I have become?
My parents inadvertently paid. They may have directly paid for the first 2 months, but they inadvertently paid for the next
we're here.
2 years of my subscription without even knowing about it.
This is where I'm at. It's where I'm staying. I like it. I like it here. Oh. 1 second. Sorry.
What?
It ain't $6 anymore. I'll tell you what. That's
dude, the fact that OG RuneScape is still that expensive is ridiculous.
To a $6 subscription, I can't even imagine what a $15 one's looking like nowadays. Huh.
Again, these are the only games that'll get away with it. There's no, like, think about it. Name me any new MMO that has a subscription service that is actually successful. I'll wait. But the problem is not necessarily with the fact that MMOs aren't popular. It's the fact that the demographic of people who play MMOs are aging.
It's $2.
And most... Here's a big thing about MMOs. MMOs do not work well for the younger generation. The younger generation are ADHD-ridden. They don't have that time commitment. The younger generation are much more likely to want to play faster-paced and much more easily dopamine-inducing games. So the people who are playing these type of MMOs are the ones who were playing MMOs back in 2005. So they're trying to milk the subscription as best they can.
50 cents more. Why is that a big deal right now? Mom, please. You don't have $2.
I mean, I suppose that's like a validation for live services and an ongoing commitment, but
what that has to
I find that to be very misleading.
I'm not gonna ask them to pay for it. That's not how that works. That's inappropriate.
In this day and age, the only way an MMO should be done is either a box price set,
you remember them, right? Yeah, they're cool. They've got their
free to play, but with microtransactions.
They can turn you into
anything else just doesn't
web
work.
Developer from the ground up. These dudes are the magicians of coding. No, my viewers aren't gonna get arranged a certain way in the first place. That's nice.
I like this guy's editing style, though.
Good thing she hasn't paid for my membership in like 12 years.
This is what it looks like to be a well-adjusted individual without ADHD.
I always joke about this debacle that RuneScape throws its new players into. We've got 2 versions. All this time I thought we were special in harassment.
Bruh. RuneScape's like, hey, we got 2 versions of RuneScape. Meanwhile, World of Warcraft over here like, hold my beer and watch this.
Our new players like this, but WoW has taken me aback. There are not 2 versions.
It's wild, right? World of Warcraft went from a you think you do but you don't moment to being like, wait a minute, but if we give these guys all of the original versions of World of Warcraft and charge them for it, why did you make multiple versions of World of Warcraft? Money!
There are not 3 versions. There are 4 versions of World of Warcraft to choose from. And now I'm the one stumped. I'm the new player having to make all these decisions I know nothing about. I don't know if there's any wrong answers here. I don't know if one of these is more expensive or anything about classes. I've never had a class before. All these races. Does race matter? Is that a question I'm allowed to ask? Is this classic or is that classic? And what is that? Where am I? What?
I can't believe I'm making this comparison, but Warframe and World of Warcraft have so much in common. There is so much to try and get your head around that it's completely off-putting to anyone who's new to the game. Like, you look at Warframe back in the old days. You look at World of Warcraft back in the old days. The simplicity of it was Horde versus Alliance, monsters, and death and magic. It was like, old World of Warcraft was a D&D enjoyer's wet dream. Whereas now it's like, well, shit, where do I start? There's all these different systems. There's all these different things. There's so many different classes. There's so much lore to get my head around. I ain't going to try and commit my brain cells to learning all this when I can just go and play this other thing that's basically the equivalent of a TikTok ADHD-ridden nightmare or rail simulator or whatever the fuck that you kids play these days whilst watching TikTok.
What do I do with this? And why the hell is there 5 of these? They gave me some book.
I still have some of the box
homework.
sets back in my mum's house somewhere.
It's stressing me out. I don't know what choice to make.
And that's the problem. Executive dysfunction. You do not know which to choose.
Fool. I'm not making a choice. There's never been a choice to make. I will be playing every single.
You fool! You fool!
Version.
And this is how mental illness starts. What better way to say that I want to commit some kind of self-flagellation? Man, this theme tune, the World of Warcraft OST hits so hard. The Orgrimmar theme tune, the Stormwind theme tune, neurons firing. Oh no! a minute. Wait a minute. Hold up. Ah, Goldshire, you say? I've never heard of this crazy, wild place. I can imagine everyone that goes to the Main Inn, Lion's Main Inn, the Goldshire Inn, is a well-adjusted and totally legitimately sophisticated individual with no degenerate antics whatsoever. I suppose that's the kind of thing though, right? No matter which version of World of Warcraft you play, because each version of World of Warcraft you'll play for different reasons. Like, modern World of Warcraft is more of a fantasy, whereas classic is more of a D&D.
For my people,
but no matter which version you play,
RuneScape 3. The servers with
Goldshire will always be the
bad,
cesspit.
and the ugly, mostly ugly, shoved into it for the last 20 years. In 2019, they released classic servers separate from the main game. A lot of players call it vanilla. That's what he called it. He's got a whole joke about it. Players got to log on and re-experience their childhood.
I thought this was really cool. I love going back, and like, to me, my best time in World of Warcraft was anything from Classic up until Mists of Pandaria. After that, I kind of started doing adult stuff. I didn't have the time, because around Mists of Pandaria is when I started streaming, and then my time commitment wasn't enough to be good at it. Like, I was one of the top 100 warriors in the world at one point, and I was in one of the top 100 raiding guilds. I've had the full experience, but the time commitment to be good at a game like this is far too heavy. So I had to make the decision of either doing that or committing self-flagellation by streaming for a living. So,
And then in about a week or two, they all snapped out of it because nostalgia cannot carry escapism forever. So that was the first real big launch of new servers, a new game to play.
Classic did make a resurgence with
Blizzard
Classic
released
Plus.
a third game you could play. Classic Burning Crusade servers, their first expansion. You could play that now.
I was raid led a guild during release.
Could remember how fun that first expansion was. Come on, you know you want to. So we now had an untouched 2006 version of the game, a 2007 first expansion.
Which might go to show how easy the content was, but I joined a guild in Classic Burning Crusade. Was so good at what I did that they made me their raid leader, and I carried that guild through clearing all of the Burning Crusade content up until Sunwell. And then the guild leader decided that they didn't want to have to commit enough time to do Sunwell, and he disbanded the guild. But I raid-led that guild all through Black Temple, and they wouldn't have done it without me.
Version of the game and the main game. Blizzard decided they were going to tend to this middle one, and by tend, I mean basically putting in updates exactly how they happened and the occasional sprinkle of microtransactions.
WoW
so in September
token.
2022, those expansion servers transformed into Wrath of the Lich King, their second expansion.
Right. Which one of you guys bought a WoW token? Which one of you did? Because if you did, you are literally contributing to the reason why the game was started failing. The WoW token, getting that disgusting taste at the back of my throat. Like, I get it, right? They made the WoW token to rather, you know, they were like, these people selling gold, they're making a lot of money. What if we did that?
It's at now, but it will soon be turned into their third expansion. I wonder how long they are going to let that time machine continue running. I'm sure everyone's having a great time. And then in November of 2023, we got the Season of Discovery, which is Blizzard dipping their toe in the water of a Classic Plus concept, which is basically...
Talk about the epitome of how Blizzard are so scared of doing anything that's new that they're not even willing to do something new that's old. They take something old and they sprinkle a little bit of new onto it. Like, when was the last time Blizzard actually made something that was original? They're literally so scared of innovation that the only time they make anything new is when it's still based off something they made from years ago.
Exactly what old school RuneScape is.
I agree. World of Warcraft should absolutely, in this day and age, be free to play. It would actually do the game so much justice. I do wonder, what with Microsoft having purchased Blizzard, I wonder if World of Warcraft will go onto the Games Pass. If it did, I think World of Warcraft might get a second coming. Because there's a lot of people who want to play World of Warcraft, they just don't want to play it with a monetary commitment. Because if you spend $15 a month, you feel obligated to play. And so many people get put off from playing because they don't want to spend $15 for a game that they don't know that they can play that much in a month. Because most people who play World of Warcraft are the same people who were playing it 15 years ago, and most of those people who were playing it 15 years ago have now grown up, got a job, got a family, got 2.5 kids, and, you know, they can only really dedicate maybe an hour when they get home from work before their wife has to peg them. So they can't validate spending $15 a month on a game they can play for maybe 1 hour at the weekend. If they took away that subscription and let people play it for free, either on the Games Pass or just generally for free, I guarantee you the game would shoot up in player base.
It's very new. There's not much to it yet. I'll go into it a little bit later, but I'm really not going to be focusing on it. We're going to talk about those mostly. I played them.
I love
A
Wrath of
lot.
Lich King Classic. I didn't play it as
A
much as
lot.
Burning Crusade Classic, but it was still fun. Nostalgia, baby.
A player's first 20 minutes in an MMO are by far the most important, because at first...
Yes! Warframe! You shouldn't have to spend 100 hours to get an idea as to what the game is going to be like. I'm just saying.
20 minutes decides if this 20 minutes will turn into an eternal uninstall, or maybe the next 10 years of monthly subscriptions and the occasional microtransaction. Most devs want that second one, no matter which version of WoW you pick to play.
I'm going to be brutally honest. The difference between classic WoW and Dragonflight, the starting of classic World of Warcraft, where you just spawn in a field, you are a random dude that is set the task of killing some boars, versus retail, where you are the chosen hero of time, and you must do this fantastical adventure with characters you give 0 fucks about. I prefer the classic starting zone. When you start Dragonflight or retail World of Warcraft, you're put into a story that you have no connection to. You're just told, oh, look, check out Greymane, check out Anduin, check out Jaina, look at these awesome characters that you have no connection to. And you're basically like shoehorned into thinking that you have to care for these characters you literally give 0 fucks about. Like, I don't know, like anyone who's new to the game, who's never played World of Warcraft before, is going to pick up retail WoW and feel like they're going to feel so overwhelmed from not knowing who the fuck they're talking about. Versus classic, where you spawn in a field, you see your drill sergeant who's like, hey, go kill those boars. Who are you? Doesn't matter. Who am I? Doesn't matter. Go kill boars. The land needs you. The modern World of Warcraft is so overly convoluted and so front heavy that anyone who's new to the game is going to be completely disinterested because they're so overwhelmed with characters and shit they don't know or care about, or don't understand whether they should care about it. Whereas classic, it's simple. You don't need to know because you don't have to know, because you're just there to play an RPG. For like, if you took away the name World of Warcraft from classic WoW and renamed it Dungeons and Dragons, it would fit. But if you put that to retail World of Warcraft and you tried making retail WoW be called Dungeons and Dragons, you couldn't, because there's so much thematic anchoring to the characters that they force in your face that you can't disassociate from the fact that it is World of Warcraft, and because it is World of Warcraft, you have to understand that all this lore they're shoving in your face. Whereas classic is you just take it for what you want it to be. It's your adventure. You don't have to care about the lore unless you want to. I don't know. Modern retail WoW, they just put you so much on the rails, and it's so off-putting. There's a reason why I can... I have not played a retail expansion of WoW for more than just getting through the base levels in raiding since, like, Legion.
You have 3 massively important decisions to make immediately. Your
Yeah, the
server,
reason why
corridor alliance, and your class.
RuneScape
And
is still
each one of
popular.
those
The reason why
decisions holds the
classic WoW is
potential
now
to
almost as
completely
popular as
ruin your World
retail,
of Warcraft
and
experience.
especially with
But
classic
we're
plus,
new,
because
we don't
you
know
are
that.
still
We won't
just that
figure
dude
it
who
out
spawns
until we're
in.
200 hours
And classic
in, so let's
plus,
not
with all
think
the
about it
additions
too
of
much right
modern,
now. The first game I
like
tried-
innovations and stuff, like classic plus is popular because it's taken the concepts of what made original classic WoW so good, and they've added a few modern twists to it, which is exactly what people wanted. They just need to be a bit more eager and adventurous with the kind of innovations they do with it.
Is classic, and this here is footage from the very first time I ever logged into World of Warcraft.
Very typical World of Warcraft moment.
This is a typical World of Warcraft moment. This is
Is this I mean, they're not wearing their underwear. They're also not doing this in Goldshire in the Lion's Mane Inn. This doesn't seem like a very generalized WoW moment. And you wanna know what this does represent though? This does represent the epitome of the dichotomy between classic and retail. And I'm sorry for pause champing. World of Warcraft is a game that I spent well over 15,000 hours in. It is a game that I spent a proportion of my life in so far, and I'm passionate about it. And I say that because I care about it still. I just wish I had time to dedicate to it. But classic WoW is and was a game that you'd play with your bros. I still remember going around my friend's house, getting together with my buds back in high school, and we would play classic WoW together. But you can't do that now. Because you get in and there's no like leveling experience. You're just because you're told how to play retail, you don't feel like you need to play with your friends. I mean, you can, and people still do, but compared to classic, where you just it's like playing a D&D game, and I make that comparison because it is the most appropriate one. Classic WoW is D&D. You play D&D with your friends like it's a Saturday night with drinks and some devil's lettuce, you know? It's more indicative to a social experience.
Logged into World of Warcraft.
Very typical World of Warcraft moment.
This is a typical World of Warcraft moment. This is way better than RuneScape.
Oh yeah, we're gonna be doing this a lot.
My first experience in Northshire.
I honestly wish I had the patience
interactions
to,
with other players in the game, and I knew right away I was
Dream
really
World of
gonna like
Warcraft.
Classic.
Which horde did you trade to get 5 gold?
I mean,
At least
I would
I
do
thought
that
this
if
was
I knew it
classic.
wouldn't kill my
Actually
channel.
turned out to be Wrath of the Lich King Classic, and I didn't know that there were 2 different
No,
versions.
what
at the
if you
time.
if
I
you
meant
guys
to
wouldn't
do
if
the
you guys
first
would want to
one,
see
but
some
when we're
World of
talking
Warcraft
first
content on my
impressions,
channel,
really didn't make a
comment down
difference.
below.
Now, this is classic. The original servers that millions of
Look
players
how clean it is.
remember
Look how
logging
look how
into for the
tidy it
first
is.
time. A charmingly warm welcome into the Alliance.
But I could go on
tutorial
ad
islands,
nauseum about
no
the
pop-up hints,
why
just
classic is
you
technically
being
better than
dropped in
retail.
an area.
I would say from like I suppose the finality of it is classic is a much more clinical experience. Retail is a much more flashy experience. And there are benefits and negatives to both. But if you want to have an experiential experience, then you play retail. If you want to play something for the sake of the gaming, then you play classic.
Filled with cool-looking dudes asking you to do some shit they really don't feel like doing, and then
Exactly.
mindlessly agreeing to it, which is a formula I'm very familiar with. Now, one of my biggest worries going into WoW,
yes, working retail.
was this thing right here, because I've never had one before. Every clip I've ever seen of someone using it, there's like 80 rows of these, and they're
I'll be honest, I think add-ons ruin World of Warcraft. I think a couple of like baseline comfort of life add-ons are great, but yeah, no.
all over the screen. It looks incredibly intimidating. I didn't know how I was gonna deal with all this, but I'm thinking about it. Like, this is 2006. This is the same thing that everybody learned back in the day. They all saw this and conquered it. I can do it. I hope. They introduce you to one
If you
ability
believe
at a
in yourself,
time at every
believe
other
in your action
level.
bar.
You literally need to purchase this new thing you're able to do, which gives you a little more incentive to learn about it. I never really struggled with my ability bar. It was always
Good to see
fine.
he's going for
You roll
warrior
the
though.
quests here until you run out of exclamation points, and you start doing them over
So
there.
he's probably like an hour, maybe 2 hours into playing classic, and he's not had any exposition. He's talked to a couple of guards. He's been told to go and kill some kobolds. Meanwhile, you play retail. Within an hour of playing retail, you're level 20. You've solved 90% of the world's problems. You fought an epic dragon. You've stopped a galactic conquest of extraterrestrial proportions, and you are then the hero of time. And you've been shoved so many random characters you have no context for that you don't care about, and you're expected to give a shit.
There's
I'm not
much
saying that either's
hand-holding
better than
going
the
on.
other,
Pretty
but I think
straightforward and
experientially,
linear, and it's enjoyable. It was a nice
Classic is
little
gonna be much
system to
more,
start out the game. And
smooth.
once I hit level 10, I started going into
There's
my
far too many bumps
specialization.
in the
that
road for
determines what
retail in
kind
my
of
eyes.
gear you're going to be searching for moving forward. The new player experience here still works. It was great.
Exactly.
I enjoyed it a lot, multiple times. Retail.
yes, before he says this, the reason I want to say this, Blizzard unfortunately are subject to their own success. They feel like they had to keep reinventing the wheel. And although innovation is great, what works for a reason. And I swear to God that if they could just literally update Classic's graphics to retail graphics, and people would probably enjoy that experience far more than they do retail currently.
On the other hand, greets new players a little bit differently. You get to make another decision after your 3 major ones, which is your starting zone. Whether you want to go to your default race classic starting zone, or the all-inclusive, every race, every side, alliance, or horde tutorial island. I did Elwyn Forest in Classic. I
kind
wanted to
of
see what
like
this
the
one was all
tutorial
about,
island
so I
thing,
went there. I started out as a
but
recruit for the
it's
alliance.
kind
I was aboard
of
this
subject
ship,
to the
and we
same
were
problem I was
searching for a
mentioning
lost
earlier, where it's
expedition.
like,
Definitely much
look at these characters, look at these names. I mean, it's cinematically gorgeous. Like, I love this, how it sets you up with this storytelling perspective. But they start shoving names in your direction, they start shoving characters in your direction, and like, thematic lore relevancies towards you that just do not hit home for a player who's never experienced a Warcraft before. Like, they expect if you pick up retail WoW that you've played a Warcraft game in the past, or you have some understanding what Warcraft is already.
much more of a tutorial right off the bat, giving you little baby book pictures.
I do like the modern
of how
UI
to
though.
use
The
your
modern UI is
keyboard
very crisp.
and your mouse if it's your first time on
As
a computer.
crisp
And then
as
you go
me
right into
and my
some,
beautiful
basic
face.
combat
Yes.
tutorials. If you've ever clicked anything before, you might catch on rather quickly. But
I'd say the
everything is
modern
completely
combat
voice
is far
acted. It
more
looks
like
beautiful.
modern World of Warcraft's combat is much more like an ARPG. Like, you look at Diablo and World of Warcraft and how similar they are and how fast-paced they are, versus Classic that's much more methodical and slow.
Beautiful. I loved the way that they made this game look very vibrant and pretty. I liked it. The first difference I noticed was the leveling, because there was a lot of it. I was already level 2 after the first quest, which is literally just move around and talk to another guy for a second. In Classic, I had to murder animals to earn that level 2. And then I swung at a guy like 3 times and I was leveled up again. I was immediately...
No joke. My record for getting max level in retail is 2 days, which actually is is actually considered a long time. I have some friends who can get to max level in like 3 hours, 4 hours. Like, leveling, this is like the dichotomy between retail and classic. Classic you play for the process of getting to like, classic is about the journey. And you know, there's a lot of stuff to do at Endgame, but classic is about the journey, about going from beginning to end. Retail is about the end. There's nothing about the journey. It's about just getting to max level and engaging with the systems and being a consumer. Consume, you socialite, you engagement metric of hours.
rewarded with 2 new abilities that were inserted
Classic takes you
right
like
in my ability
a
bar.
week,
I
like
did
200
not pay
hours.
for
Like,
them.
I'd say classic
I
for
suddenly
an
have
average
these
player
2
takes about
things.
100
I
hours
felt
to get
weird
to
about
max
it.
level.
After I proved that my mouse
Retail?
and keyboard work, then the real
Like
tutorial
10.
started. I'm suddenly a part of a shipwreck, a real bad shipwreck. I mean, a disastrous one. But luckily, I wash up on shore. And I kind of have to throw a wrench in the story real quick, Blizzard. There's no universe in which a recruit, essentially an extra in the background, is surviving this. I was put on this ship as an expendable member that they are willing to sacrifice for the greater
But
cause here.
Mr.
There's like
Dude,
15 other people
use
on
your
this ship that
imagination.
would get life support before me. But we, the recruit, have somehow washed ashore. I don't really know the significance of the island, really. All I know is that they basically speedrun you from level 1 to 10 as they dish out abilities to you like they're fucking Costco samples. I linked up with a bunch of characters, did a bunch of whack.
That actually raises a very a very interesting point for something else. Nothing in retail feels earned. You know? Because there's no journey to the end game, when you get a new ability, when you level up, it just feels like, oh, that's nice. Whereas in Classic, every single level you get means something, you know? Every single talent point you get. And one of the big things that goes untalked about a lot is level gating. In retail, no matter where you go, the level of the enemy is always going to be based around the level you are, which kind of makes it so that as you level up, you feel weaker because the enemy is getting stronger and they're getting a larger health pool and it takes you longer to kill them. So even though you're technically becoming stronger, you feel weaker because it's taking longer to kill those enemies. Whereas in Classic, because every area has a very specific level cap and level for the area, If you accidentally go to an area that you're under-leveled for, you get slapped around, you get thrown around, you get friggin' punched to the graveyard, and you realize, yes, I'm not supposed to be here yet. So you go away, you level up, you come back a couple levels higher, and you start beating it, and then you feel that accomplishment for having gotten there. Which is just ridiculous, because every level then feels like it matters. Every point you get to your talents feels like it's going to help you progress. Every level feels like you're going to be that much stronger, and you feel that much stronger because of the progression. I feel like level gating and the level adaptiveness of leveling in retail just kind of removes a lot of the weight in the successive accomplishment.
Wacky shit with them. They
Thanks for that bullet, by the way.
Helicopter or whatever. I experimented on animals. So I made.
I mean, doing this for the first time was fun because it was it was one of the first times you had a storytelling mode in leveling.
This native island. Very different experience here than it was in the classic version. And before I could even look up at my
But that's
screen,
the thing! Both of these leveling processes are just as fun as each other for different reasons. It's not to say this is wrong or the other one's wrong. It's just depending on what you're trying to get out of the MMO or depending on which one you prefer.
Congratulations,
Again, you'll
recruit,
play
you've
one
hit
for very
level
different
10.
reasons to
I
the
know
other.
You haven't looked up at that XP bar in about 5 minutes, but yeah, you've been killing it. I fight more
Like,
things.
if you play this, you're going to be confused and bewildered by all the names and the context, but experientially, you're going to have a great time.
No, I just feel like.
But for the challenge and accomplishment, Classic will give you much more of a feeling of accomplishment.
You to level 10, get you some decent starter gear, but I don't believe that makes it into a better tutorial because it pushes you farther ahead. Because the tutorial here felt more like play the game. Over here, it felt more like, okay, 10 levels and then you can play the game. I wanted to compare.
Like, Classic's retail World of Warcraft, there's no room. You can't fail. You literally can't fail. There's no punishment for failure. If you die in retail, especially in the tutorial or leveling, you don't feel like you've made a mistake because there's no consequence for your loss. Whereas in Classic, if you die, you have to pay your repair bills. You're going to have to spend more money on resources. And because gold is so hard to come by in Classic, every death hinders you. That money that you would have spent on your skills, on more armor, then goes towards your repairs, and you suddenly get hindered. You can't buy your food or water anymore. There's so much more of a there's much more consequence for everything you do in Classic.
The two starting zone options
Which
you have
realistically
as a new player, just
isn't a
to
bad
see
thing.
the true difference.
If you want to be have a more casual experience and a story experience, then retail's your thing. If you want something that's a bit more hardcore and going to actually encourage you to play better, then you go Classic. You scared me, Makari. Join the stream. YouTubers. Oh, well, welcome in.
Faster leveling than classic.
Thank you for joining us on the YouTube side of things. I love having that. We're actually recording something right now. Hey guys, look in my chat box right there. The little Shasty, they just did what you could do. You could come to my Twitch right now and join us.
Be a little OP to start.
Be like
and
Shasty.
That might sound dramatic because we're just talking about levels 1 to 10, but this is the new player experience.
Congratulations, you're in my video
now. This is supposed to set the tone for the rest of your experience. And it also made me realize if I had played retail before Classic and I had picked the island, I wouldn't have gotten to see.
Man, don't swear at the YouTube lot like that. They might be slightly mentally disturbed, but that doesn't mean you can just go around swearing at them. God, you guys gotta stop being in each other's throats. Get along. Don't make me put you in the corners.
From the game, walked us to Stormwind. He introduced it, and the music on my client happened to sync perfectly with his introduction to it.
This is it. Stormwind.
That music, though. I was a Horde baby. I was Horde for life, but this music still hits hard.
I loved that. And if you don't go through Elwyn Forest, you just get dropped off at the front gates, which is not the same. Retail also mimics RuneScape 3 in that they panic to get you the fuck out of Earth.
Isn't that funny? Retail, I think that's another thing that doesn't get talked about a lot. Classic WoW is its own identity. Retail World of Warcraft is such a muddled mess of imitations of other games. It's got fucking roguelike elements in there. It's got Diablo elements in there. It's got elements from other MMOs. Modern retail WoW is not its own unique thing anymore because they've been so hard to compete against other MMOs that they've just adopted every element of other games out there to a point where you can't even identify that it's really World of Warcraft anymore, per se. Other than maybe the combat system, but
level. All Blizzard ever has wanted from you, your gift to them, is not being a shit low-level account. They hate
And
that.
money.
They hate that you're not max level right now. Every video game dev deals with this problem at one point or another because it's something that very few games
Well,
have
I'm not a
ever
VTuber,
mastered.
little Shay. I'm just happily a
Progression.
YouTuber that happily uses a VTube model.
There's an old saying that applies to a lot of MMOs. Very commonly in this one, the game doesn't start until you hit level 60 or whatever the max level may be. And honestly, I understand why they say that, where that comes from. For me, simply not true. Nothing in any video game beats the euphoric feeling, the dopamine-filled experience of seeing a number that belongs to you go up. Whether you're level 5 or you're level 80,
DPS
whether it's
go
your
up.
gear upgrades or the amount of money that you have on you. If the number's going up, you're happy about it. Every time I got a gear upgrade,
Okay, this isn't necessarily a problem. I think that this is kind of the epitome of MMO mindset. The MMO brain, if you will. The reason why MMOs work so well is because they are a constant hit of dopamine. There are so many different facets that give you a encouragement to try and be better. If you are playing most MMOs, when you get a shiny purple, it gets you that dopamine. It's like, oh, an epic, an upgrade. It makes me feel like I've progressed. I want to get that dopamine even more. Retail WoW kind of throws that at you. And it's kind of like, here, have all the things, all the stuff, all the time, every time. And again, it kind of dilutes the sense of accomplishment when it just gives you everything. It's why, again, Classic feels much more, Classic feels much more, I don't say worthwhile, but like, Classic feels much more like you succeed when you do something, because every thing you earn and get hits that much harder, because it's that much harder to grind for. But at the end of it, everyone, like, one of the biggest reasons people play these games, for the gameplay at least, is knowing that they are improving, which kind of countermines how retail works for the leveling process, considering you feel weaker as you get higher.
from the minute I spawned in Northshire, I felt the actual emotion of happy. What else can do that for you?
Yeah, exactly. Oh my god, this 4-stam 4-leather belt. But wait, this other thing is a 5-stam 5-leather belt. Number go up. Number go up. Wow, number has gone up. Can't believe it.
And over again. Legally, what can
It's
do
you in
that
the dopamine sense.
legally?
Give me that
over and
serotonin.
over
Give me that
again?
dopamine,
I played
baby.
Wrath the absolute most
I
out
upgraded
of
my
all
gear, which
games.
means I'm
I
gonna
got a
hit
warrior
harder
to level
now.
71
Dopamine goes up.
and a paladin to 80. And there was never a level on either of those accounts where I felt like I was at a dead end and there was no possible way for me to get an upgrade or progress myself, because there's so many ways that you can do it. Doing quest lines, gear upgrades, PvP, gear upgrades, dungeons, gear upgrades, farming reputation, gear upgrades, giving Blizzard $15 gear upgrades. And the best part is, I could almost
Okay,
feel
we're not
the
going to go into
upgrades. I
the.
haven't
We're not
touched
going to
on
talk about
plugins much, but
Blizzard's
they're a big
egregious
part of the game. And there's one plugin
predatoriness with their
that,
how they
a lot
microtransact
of
their
players
game.
have it. It basically shows everyone's DPS in your party.
Look, if you're new to the game, you will just have to come to the realization, especially for classic World of Warcraft, if you're not playing a warrior or a mage, you're just not going to be top of the charts. That's just the way it is. Mage and warrior always win.
And there's just a very unique feeling of disdain when your role is a DPS and you see your name at the bottom. You get filled with enough guilt to motivate you to go get better shit.
That was your
which
mistake
usually
for not
means
playing a mage or
running that
warrior.
dungeon
Scum.
a few more times being at the bottom of the list. But as soon as you get those upgrades, you can see a visual confirmation of you getting better because your gear.
But here's the problem with that, and something that Final Fantasy XIV has proven doesn't need to be a focus for the game. Final Fantasy XIV has proven that the focus on actually having an experience versus trying to be the best actually maybe works better. I personally love Final Fantasy XIV for the fact that there's no DPS meters, for the fact that it's very hard to see if you're improving, because then you focus on the social aspect, which means you're much more likely going to be involved with the game and feel like you're immersed. Different strokes for different goats, I suppose.
Is getting better. It's so satisfying. The pacing of Classic from early level to Endgame just felt nice. It didn't feel too fast and it didn't feel too
One thing I will
slow.
say,
I still had to work.
Everything I've said does not matter if you have a social group. If you have a group of bros that you're just going to play with, it don't matter whether you want to gear up or get that satisfaction for completion. if you have a group of friends that you play with, everything is superseded to the experience of just dicking around with your friends. I have played so many. I've come back to World of Warcraft and Final Fantasy so many different times just to play with my friends.
Work for things and grind a little bit, and I didn't feel stuck there for too long. There was always something to look forward to. The progression system that I experienced in Wrath just felt really rewarding, and the pacing was great all the way up
Even though
until
they were
I
all
hit
dying there.
level 80, which is ironic because a lot of WoW players will tell you
Okay, now to show how much of a nerd I am, that guy's wearing the shield from Ulduar hard mode. That's the shield from the final boss of the Arachnid Wing in Naxxramas 25 man. That is the hammer from the 5-man dungeon. I can't remember the name of it off the top of my head. It's the one with all the stone guys in it. That's the sword from the Flame Leviathan in Ulduar. They're also wearing the tier 7 and tier 8, I believe. Paladins. Oh, no, tell light. The shoulders aren't that. That is the Naxxramas non-tier shoulder pads even. Yes, I can tell that from here now, actually. Then the Paladin's wearing tier 8. They're wearing tier 8. They're wearing leveling gear, I believe. Yeah, this person's clearly just leveled. Man, I love having 15,000 hours in this game.
you don't even start the game until you hit level 80. When I hit 80, I watched my XP bar disappear right before my eyes, and a whole new progression system began. Once you hit max level, you can now wear max level shit, and you are now pushed into a whole new complicated hole that you will just keep digging deeper and deeper. You're grinding pre-raid best in slot so that you can get phase 2 and 3 until you've got the gear so that you can play a proper role in the endgame raids and get your true best in slot. And you want to know how long that takes? Well, you gotta ask someone else because I have no idea. I didn't do it. Shit just got complicated, dude. I mean, I was plugging my gear into a website that tells you what you need to do next.
Okay, and this is the other thing. Like, itemization and making gearing the only facet for why you'd want to play becomes immensely boring when everything then turns into a spreadsheet. Like, I've never had to play Final Fantasy XIV and sit there thinking, well, I need this exact item to be able to perform 4.9 DPS more. I mean, yeah, again, gearing does matter to a degree, but it's not going to be the thing that distinguishes whether I'm going to have a better experience or not. It'll just, in Final Fantasy XIV, it's more about, well, I do look slightly fancier, and my dick does look about 5 inches bigger with this set of gear on.
And how to get it, where to do it, which usually involved looking for a 40-man raid for a chance at getting something, or doing some beta dungeon, whatever the hard difficulty is, or grinding reputation for a group of people I did one quest for one time.
Dude,
and they
friggin' 18-year-old content, and they still can't fix this shit.
need to see me as a god so I can buy a shoulder enchantment. I feel like all the levels before max is more of like a sandboxy feel of getting the gear that you feel like getting.
Classic is about the journey.
Cooler. But once you hit max level,
a bit of a destination.
It's like a straight path.
No, but yeah, classic, there's much more to the journey. And the destination, there's still stuff there, but the journey is much more impactful, and it feels like you're doing something.
To follow. I don't think everyone feels that way, but that's how I felt going in. I felt like I had to follow this website and get the good gear. Otherwise, I mean, what else am I doing? I started to not feel
What else are you doing? Well, gee! You're spending hours and hours of time playing a video game where you could have been spending that time getting a real job in the real world, earning money, and being a productive member of society, motherfucker! Sorry, that might have been me projecting a little bit of my insecurities.
To log into the game, which sucked because I had such a fun journey to the max level. It was always fun looking forward to being a little bit stronger or going to a new area. And suddenly I was just in the same area all the time, doing the same dungeons with the same people, and it just felt really repetitive and not very exciting. What I'm trying to say here is that once I hit max level, it almost felt like the game had finished. I just wasn't really into that grind as much. We didn't even get to explore the whole map. I still haven't even seen every region in Wrath. But when we hit level 80, why would I be going to the old zones? There's nothing for me there. My low level...
Again, that is why I will dip between World of Warcraft and Final Fantasy. Because in Final Fantasy, there is a reason to do everything. Older content becomes relevant for for the sake of transmog, for the sake of helping friends. Like, I honestly think if World of Warcraft really wanted to be competitive, they should have honestly taken a page out of Final Fantasy's book on making all content relevant. Because, like, the biggest issue I find with retail WoW is that there's no reason to go to the old content for the most part, other than for transmog. And that's not really a big reason for a lot of people when they're newer to the game. And it creates so much more, like, longevity when even the oldest content can still be viable.
Grinds are far from over because I enjoyed it a lot and I look forward to doing it again. Some of the most fun I've ever had in a video game. Progression in retail.
Okay, so I want to show you guys something. The way, in my eyes, the way you create a successful MMO is to front load it. Think about it. You either have the World of Warcraft approach, where it's a carrot on a stick. The carrot for World of Warcraft is at the end, especially for retail. You know, retail's carrot per se is all the way back here. It's this like final section of raiding of the systems that are there. Classic, the carrot is a bit further back because there's much more for there to be to have that carrot. And then everything here is about your experience getting there. Final Fantasy, on the other hand, they give you that carrot from the word go. Like, everything here is that carrot that you're chasing. And the reason why I think this works better for fostering an audience that will actually continuously play your game is because if there is the constant encouragement of things to do and reasons to play, they're much more likely to stick around and feel like they're immersed with the game and wanting to actually experience it because they don't feel like they're gonna run out of things to do that soon. When you make it so that all of that carrot is at the end, there's not going to be as much to do once they get there.
Retail kind of coincides with the story that they toss you into, but I
That's
have a
not
whole
a butt
section for
plug!
the
Oh
story
my
after
God.
this, so I'm going to try and just
Hey, now,
focus on
if you want to see
the
that, you can go to my
progression side of
Fansly.
things. And the reason that they speedrun you to level 10 and drop you off at the front gates of Stormwind is because that's a requirement to start Battle of Azeroth, and Battle of Azeroth is a requirement to start World of Warcraft.
Battle for
not
Azeroth?
optional.
Hey,
You
look!
have to
Okay, guys, look, this is exactly what I mean. Retail experience. Hey, you're this savior of mankind. Here's Anduin Rin. Who is he? You don't know. Who's this person stood next to him? He looks gruff, but you don't know. Who's this person teleporting you? You don't know. Why should we care about them? We don't know. What about this land that you're in? Why do you have to care? We don't know. What about going to this land to fight for something you've only known for 5 minutes? Nobody cares. Classic WoW. You're fighting for the land because you live there. You are your own hyperbolic individual.
to do it. Don't question it. Welcome to our 2017 expansion. I hope you have fun. We'll check back in with you later. As soon as I jump into this expansion and get thrown into this Kultiris place, everything I've ever known about progression is suddenly out the window. I am getting significant gear upgrades every quest. Not only that, but what in the fucking inflation is this? that gives a quest reward is giving me dump trucks worth of gold. I mean, I'm loaded. I can sell junk items to vendors for like hundreds of gold at a time. I'm getting all the abilities shoved in. They have a new way of doing specializations, which I actually liked. I get to mess around more.
I loved it when they brought
them
it back. I hated when they took out the old talent system. Like, this is the one thing that kind of brought the game back a little bit, is getting something per level. Like when they took out when they used that talent system post Cataclysm, where you just had like 5 different points you could put your points into. What the hell, man? That was just such a cookie cutter bullshit.
I don't even remember dying in retail. You're basically a walking god. I mean, I'm hacking and slashing my way through giant poles of mobs with no consequences.
Lucky for you, I keep running into shitters who don't know how to heal.
Nobody here has called me a recruit in a while, which made me realize They're not talking about my military rank, they're talking about the difficulty of the game. So I'm soaring through this confusing quest line at what could only be a record pace. I was leveling so fast that I would go multiple levels without realizing that I had in fact leveled up. It just became more and more apparent as I went along that even though the devs forced me to come here, they really just didn't want me there at all. This lightning fast level.
So here's the thing, right? The difference, and I made this comparison because really World of Warcraft and Final Fantasy XIV are the only quote-unquote relevant MMOs that are still growing in this day and age. The difference being is that whereas Final Fantasy XIV makes all the old content relevant by making it hard and level appropriate, World of Warcraft feels like when you go back to do the level-adjusted content, it doesn't feel like you're going there for any reason beyond just leveling up, and so that the Blizzard could just shove your face in that content to say, hey, look, this content used to exist. Whereas in Final Fantasy, the content that gets scaled to your level, you're usually doing at some point because it was part of the story that you were encouraged to do. Like, yes, going from base level in Final Fantasy XIV to get through all the way through to the final story quest will take you hundreds of hours. But at the very least, going through the story, like, the difference being is that Final Fantasy story is one cohesive narrative, generally. You know, Final Fantasy XIV story is this one, you know, Final Fantasy XIV is this one long narrative. And you have the different expansions that separate it off. But it's still the same story. You're still following the same characters. And in here, you have the different instances. You have the different dungeons, the different encounters, the different bosses. But it's still part of the same story. Whereas World of Warcraft, on the other hand, it's this different bullshit that changes every single expansion, where everything that happened in the previous expansion is now suddenly left behind, where everything that you did in the previous one doesn't matter in the next expansion. Which, funnily enough, is exactly why World of Warcraft, and I said this earlier, World of Warcraft are actually now imitating Final Fantasy, because the War Within expansion is the start of a 3 expansion long narrative that is going to run through all 3 expansions. It's almost like after 20 years, World of Warcraft finally realized that what they were doing wasn't the best way of telling a story. God damn it. It's a shame it took them that long.
Is all they wanted. It's basically Blizzard saying, look, you're a new guy, you don't know shit about shit. We're gonna bring you to probably the prettiest place that we can send you until you hit level 60, and then you can come experience content that we've actually
Which again is why Final Fantasy XIV
which I completely
ends
understand.
up holding
but the problem
people
with
so
that
much more
is the
beyond,
more I
like,
did
that's
battle.
why Final Fantasy XIV holds people for more than just the gameplay, because people feel immersed in the story because they feel like what they're gonna do. And it's the same with gearing. In World of Warcraft, when a new expansion comes out, all the gear you had in the... not even just expansion. Whenever a new tier of content comes out in World of Warcraft, all the gear you had from the previous tier becomes irrelevant. And then you feel like you've wasted your time. Like, every bit of gear in Final Fantasy is still relevant for the most part.
Azeroth, the more pointless it felt. All these characters
Again,
I
not
was
that any of them
meeting
are
in
wrong,
villages
just
I was helping,
one
it was all just a big sham,
feels better
serving
than the
as my
other.
XP boost to level 60 to take me to Dragonland, possibly as a punishment. But I do as many quests as I can. I try and get involved in the story a little bit. But sure enough, the second I hit 60, right on cue, my pager's going off, and I'm getting contacted, me and pleading me.
I
to
was only
return
born yesterday!
and start the Dragon Chronicles. And so I did. I went back to Stormwind. I got to the Dragon place. I think I leveled up like once or twice, and then I logged out because I realized that
You were
that
bored?
entire experience, I had yet to talk to a single other human.
Yes! Fucking, that is so true. This is why Classic WoW hits me so much better. Retail World of Warcraft is so separated and so short in the journey. There's no reason to talk to other players. In Classic WoW, so here's a fun thing. In Classic WoW, you go into a major city, people are talking to each other, trading, interacting, role-playing. They're playing the game because it's much more of a role-play game, because they haven't been told this is what they have to do. They haven't been handheld the entire way. There are quests and dungeons that you have to manually assign your groups for, that you have to manually look for, which means you are engaging with other players. There's a much more social experience. In retail, every system puts you onto a train track and just sends you off. There's no reason to play with other players. I cannot name the last time I played retail World of Warcraft and saw other people actually socializing with each other. And that is one of the most disappointing things imaginable. Because when I play a massively multiplayer online role-playing game, I want to feel like I have a reason to talk to people. I want to feel like there's a reason for me to be there hanging out with people. But really, retail World of Warcraft is just a solo experience until you get to max level and you start raiding with people. And even then, you don't need to necessarily talk to people because there's looking for raid. You play Final Fantasy XIV and you go to Limsa Lominsa or any major city and there are people hanging out, socializing. People don't feel like they have to do the systems because there's reason to hang out with each other. It's a much more immersive experience and a much more invested experience because you invested in the world rather than the systems. Oh boy!
Even once.
This is the best day ever.
Well, looking back on retail, I think the best way to describe the progression of that game is there is none, because it never felt like I was progressing.
Because
that's just
nothing
the way
matters.
that it's built. Everywhere you go, mobs are scaling up with you. I'm level 32, they're level
I called it.
32. If I'm 54, they're 54. I never become stronger than the mobs unless you go to like early game areas, which is just irrelevant. As I level up, I'm noticing that the monsters are just getting more annoying to kill. They just make them hit harder.
I hate
and
to say
have
that
more
I'm
health.
self-fulfilling
Simply
prophecy, but
longer
everything this
combat
guy's mentioned is stuff
interactions.
that I've
I never
talked
felt
about.
like I was getting stronger.
God
I never felt
damn
like my new abilities were doing what they were supposed
This is gonna
to
be
do.
so
because
hard
they
to
had
edit.
more health to deal with it. And it was kind of annoying. Getting upgrades and not feeling like you got upgrades had to be
Golly,
the
it's
least
almost like this is
satisfying
exactly
thing
what I was
felt
talking
in
about
any
5
of the
minutes
games.
ago,
I
because
never
it
got
might
to
be that
max
I'm
level
experienced with
retail,
this
so I
bullshit.
don't really know what the end game
I
is like.
would hope
it
I would
could
be up to
be
15,000
miles better than
15,000
classic.
hours in a game
I
like
just
this.
never got there. By the time I got to 60 and just didn't have anyone playing with me, realizing that I had done the whole journey alone.
You're paying $15 a month to play a single player game that's sold as a multiplayer game. Imagine if you went and bought Metro: The Last Light or Cyberpunk and they charge you $15 a month to then play it after you bought the original box set. That's what World of Warcraft retail is in this day and age. Because realistically, and you want a funny statistic? Raiding is dead in World of Warcraft, in retail especially. People don't have time to commit to raiding with 20 other people and wait for the most stupid person to stop making mistakes. People don't want to spend $15 a month to try and do something that's only going to be successful once the stupidest person in the group isn't being stupid anymore. But people put up with it because that's what they're used to.
I just didn't feel motivated to keep going, which kind of sucks because more than anything, I was really looking forward to the story.
Story, oh boy.
You ever try watching all of the Avengers movies, starting from Iron Man, going all the way to the very last ones that were made? I've tried that so many times, and I usually make it about 3 or 4 movies in. There's so many stories you need to...
The same problem happens with Warframe. You try and tell yourself, you try and validate why you're playing something. Oh, I played this for the story. I'm playing this for the gameplay. But when the game has been around for, like, eventually a game becomes a victim of its own success. Warframe is struggling with this. World of Warcraft is struggling with this. Eventually, there are so many plot devices and story elements that are in the game. For you to get a full grasp of what happens, you have to put so much effort in. The reason why Final Fantasy XIV works is because it basically requires you to go through the story to get your progression. It doesn't say, oh, well, it's not it's compartmentalized. You don't have to do these other parts of the story. Everything in Final Fantasy XIV is cyclical, which means you end up having to experience it regardless. Whereas World of Warcraft, it's like, well, shit, where's this story start? Why is this the thing? Who is this character? Why is this character... Like, you don't have to experience the 20 years of content to play the game, which is why you then get confused as to who the fuck anyone is.
tell. There's so much explanation that needs giving. It's a lot easier to understand the Avengers series.
At least
if
Final
you
Fantasy
watch them as
XIV
they came out. You
owns the fact that
experience
it's going to give
them
you
at the
all of
same
that
time as
narrative before it
everyone
lets you
else,
get
and
to
you
the
were just
end of everything.
anticipating the next movie. But if you've never watched them and you're trying to take it all in, catch up. It's kind of miserable. I know some people can do that. I can't do it. I knew going in that WoW has an incredibly...
Goldshire. These two are clearly just having a lovely manicure. This little dwarf here is on some kind of shrooms. These guys are deciding to have a slumber party. There is nothing degenerate happening in this shot at all.
dense and really cool story. I really can't begin to tell you how disappointed I was to experience World of Warcraft's story in Classic and Retail. Classic kind of starts you off as just, you're a nobody. You've got no accomplishments, no milestones.
Exactly what I was talking about.
No one knows you.
I'm
you're
so
just
smart.
a guy trying
Guys,
to do his
one's in the
part
chat
and
if you
help
think I'm
out. You're
smart
just a
for having
very
mentioned
small
everything he's
thing
about to
in
mention
this
already.
Very big world that has a lot more important things going on.
Classic
than you.
WoW
The
is
Elven
very much like a
Forest
D&D
quest line,
campaign.
Starting in Northshire, going to Goldshire, helping out the locals with their little Kebble
Pooh?
problems, heading
What
to
the
the
fuck do you mean,
Alliance
Pooh?
capital and helping some
Listen here, you little
folks out around
shitbags.
there, taking
If
on
you guys
their
don't
first
start putting ones in the chat,
mini-boss
I'll no
I
Macca's
don't like
tonight,
saying
no
his
Happy
name
Meal.
out loud. Upsets me.
Ones,
You head to
and I'll
Westfall,
take you
start
to
helping
Macca's
out
and I'll
the
even let you
locals
keep
there,
the Happy
and
Meal
doing your
toy.
first dungeon, the
Unless it's
Dead
Yu-Gi-Oh, in
Mines,
which case it's
where
mine.
you face your first real antagonist, Edwin Van Cleefus. It's just Van Cleef. Cleefus sounds cooler. And that's where you have your first real accomplishment as a character. It's your first significant thing that you've done. And from there, well, I mean, that's kind of where they lost me. World of Warcraft quests are built for you to not give a fuck. And the way the quest pops up allows you to press accept instantly, accept the reward instantly. It's just begging you to not give a fuck. All of them are either fetch these things or kill a bunch of those. No matter what thing you're fetching or thing you're killing, it all eventually blends together into the same quest. It was hard to focus on anything lore related because I
It's why it helps tweak my ADHD so fantastically.
knew when I went to the next area, I would just be doing the exact same thing I was doing in the last area. My thing is questing. I'm really glad it's in the game that I've been doing the questing on.
I'll be brutally honest. I've never played RuneScape long enough to get to this kind of content. I think I tried playing World of Warcraft at one point like this. Oh, sorry, RuneScape like this once, and oh boy, I just did not have the attention span.
And not this one, because the series would be a lot more boring if I did it on WoW. It is not encouraging you to read. I even went as far as downloading a plugin that uses AI voice generators of the
add-on.
actual characters' voices to read all the dialogue out loud. It just adds a little more sound to the boring thing you're doing. Most of the lore is revealed before, during, and after dungeons and raids. That's when the big significant things are happening in the world. That's where you can pay attention
Does that
to
sound
what
familiar
the
to you guys? Sounds an awful lot like how Final Fantasy XIV does their thing, except in Final Fantasy XIV, there's a cinematic every 5 minutes because they cared about their storytelling, unlike some games.
Are saying, and then what's happening around you. If it were single
Think that
player,
follow.
because when I get a group for a dungeon, that's the last thing I'm doing. Hey guys, you mind holding on a second? I'm not going AFK. I'm right here, but I gotta listen to what this NPC's saying real quick. Just gonna see how this plays out back here in this lore that happened 15 years ago. I would find myself outside.
This one dungeon was so horrific for that. Hey guys, let's do a quick in and out 5-minute dungeon. Meanwhile, the one guy who's got to do their quest at the beginning has to go and open 5 boxes of grain littered somewhere around the opening area. Yeah, guys, put this quick 5-minute in and out so I can do 10 minutes of questing. Okay, thanks.
Inside the dungeon, kicked from the group. I'm not going to put a pause to these people's day. Funny enough, the thing that gave me the most context for the world that I was running around in did not come from any version of the MMO. It actually came from Warcraft 3. It was a complete unintentional discovery. I started seeing all these things I recognized from the MMO. I learned all about Prince Arthas and his origin story. Very bright young man. Great future ahead for him. I saw Jaina Proudmoore. She wasn't getting
I said all this
immediately
earlier.
the first time I
A
ever saw
big reason
her.
why people
Learned
play
about
World
the
of Warcraft is because
Burning
they have
Legion.
some
Those guys are up to no
relevancy
good.
of the
Illidan
original
Storm
Warcraft
Rage, that
games.
guy's a badass.
Modern
Miss
Retail WoW
Whisperwind.
has
There's
none
a
of
bunch
that.
of cool shit happening in that game. After I played it, and I started...
Like, realistically, any prevalence to the original Warcraft timeline died after Cataclysm. And there were some tidbits here or there, but, you know, realistically, after Cataclysm, World of Warcraft became a completely unrecognizable game in terms of, like, characters, design, conversation. And even when they tried bringing that back with, like, Shadowlands, Like, hey, look, Arthas is still here apparently, and Uther. You guys remember Uther? You guys remember these nostalgic things? Yeah, we're bringing them back, baby. And then they didn't, and then they disenchanted Arthas, and then they completely botched the entire expansion.
Questing again in Wrath. There was a scene that played out in some side quest in Northrend. It was something that happened with the same voice lines in the same way that it happened in Warcraft 3, but it's from a new MMO perspective, and now it's cool for me. It just felt like the moment came to life, and then realizing that doing the Culling of Stratholme fucking dungeon was actually a mission that I went through with, playing as Arthas, and now I was boots on the ground on the front lines with him, doing that. Made the war crime so much cooler. And granted, Warcraft 3 didn't teach me everything about the world of Warcraft, but it gave me more context into this world I was running around in. I knew more about certain characters, I knew the origins of certain places that existed. It just enhanced the overall immersion of running around the world doing these quests that started to feel repetitive. The fact that I did have to go play a whole different game to understand the world more and feel
currently
it's
not sustainable.
I
cannot stand
I know some people say the books are really good for lore. I haven't checked them out myself. If you've read any of the books...
Motherfucker, do you think people don't have time to do a 20-person raid? Do you think people have time to read a book about a game they give zero shits about? Seriously, think about it. These people don't even have time to do a 5-person dungeon after World of Warcraft after work before their wife has to peg them, and then they have to spend the rest of the week looking after the kids. Like, these guys are the kind of people that only have an hour on the weekends to play World of Warcraft. These guys are not going to have time to read books about a world and universe they give literally no shits about and haven't done since Wrath of Lich King was a thing.
And recommend them. Let me know. Maybe they suck and one of you will save me. Classic has a very old school way of telling the story where you kind of have to force yourself to be more invested in the story if you want to understand it. I will say, this is something that they actually did make a big effort to improve on. Now, since RuneScape 3 has microtransactions, transmog, and the story going for it...
I'm going to be brutally honest, I saw these transmogs, and I thought this was Final Fantasy XIV. When in the did World of Warcraft put thigh highs and mini skirts in the game? Did they just openly say, hey, yeah, guys, no, we're totally allowing you to slut mog yourself? Like, you know, maybe I should play World of Warcraft again. Like, the only time I ever got good at transmogging was for the sake of wearing the black mage weave set, because it was the only bodysuit in the entire game that could show off my glorious thighs. Now they're just giving you slut mog? It's like, hey, yeah, we're not going to acknowledge the ERP exists, but we know that the ERPers are the people who spend most of their money in this game.
I was very excited to see how retail told their story, and unfortunately, it has far too many of them. On top of all of the original content from the launch of the game in 2004, World of Warcraft has had 9 expansions full of new areas, new races, new quests.
Arguably, that's not even true. Arguably, you could then segment it down into the actual patches within those as well. Because that's kind of how you look at Final Fantasy XIV, is you look at it in the patches rather than the expansions. Each one of these expansions has probably anywhere between 3 and 4 patches within them that adds more content to the game. But the difference being is, whereas Final Fantasy, the patches are synchronous and cyclical, every time a patch is introduced within one of these expansions, it segments that expansion up and makes everything that came before it irrelevant. So, to argue that Final Fantasy XIV has the better way of adding expansions, there's no question. Final Fantasy has always had a better way of continuing the narrative and the reason for playing.
New storylines, catastrophic events that change the entire video game. There is so much that has happened. Me pulling up to retail with intent of understanding a baby, strolling up to understand anything. This is a terrible metaphor. Blizzard sees new players as nothing more than babies. They arrive knowing zero things. They've contributed nothing.
You know what? That is the difference between Final Fantasy, Square Enix, and World of Warcraft. Blizzard sees their players as metrics. They see them as, how can we keep this person playing so we can up our engagement numbers? Final Fantasy XIV has that, but it's like, you know what? We don't really care about holding your hand through this experience. You're going to have it rough and ready, baby. And you're going to either love it or you hate it. And you'll make your decision, and then we respect your time enough to make that decision later. And if you don't like getting, you know, look at it this way. World of Warcraft is like going to a theme park and you have the choice to go on either the carousel that has all the seats and rides replaced with dildos, or you get to go on the Ferris wheel with all the seats covered in dildos. No matter which one you choose, you're gonna get fucked. Final Fantasy, on the other hand, is you only have the choice of the carousel. And every single carousel seat has a small dildo. So you get fucked a little bit, but you make your decision whether that's going to be for you if you want to go on for the ride for any longer. And you can get off at any point, and you can choose not to go on it. This metaphor works immensely well in my head. I realize it might not work for you guys, but in my head it works, okay? Either way, it depends how much you're willing to get.
And they're annoying because you have to teach them shit now. Blizzard hates babies, is what I'm going for.
Yo, I hate
It's
babies
just
too.
never
Fucking
going
children,
to be
am I right?
easy for a
Can't
new
stand
player
them.
to understand
Stupid chick
the
kids,
lore
gah.
of World of Warcraft after everything that's happened. I could do as much research and read the books as much as I want. I could make myself a Quizlet to really make sure I nail down the hard facts of how this universe was formed. But what I came to realize is MMO stories are not like other stories. They're their own thing, their own genre, their own structure and format. A universe
Realistically,
like
if you're playing
World
an
of
MMO,
Warcraft
chances
is
are,
not going to be
unless
like
it's Final Fantasy
the
14, you're not
Avengers
playing it for the
universe
story.
or the Harry Potter or
Not
Star
as the
Wars
priority, at
universe
least.
that can be
The
told.
story in an MMO is
stories are
like
something that
secondary.
you have to experience. It's the old expression, you had to be there. And I wasn't there.
So when are we going to all come to realize that the only people who care about this entire conversation are the millennials who were born in the 90s, who are now so old that they're trying to hold on to their nostalgic childhood so they can have some level of endorphin and remnants of their childhood, rather than realizing that they've grown old and that what they like is now no longer trendy, and that the only way they can hold on to that level of youth is through the nostalgia of their nostalgia goggles. Oh.
Well, hold on a second. What about that feature that Blizzard put in, letting you experience all the expansions? Oh, you mean Chromie, one of the jankiest, nonsensical systems ever put into a video game.
Chromie, the MacGuffin of the entire
game. I have tried to experience the expansions in World of Warcraft through Chromie, a system designed to let you go experience all of these. Whether you're a veteran player who just wants some nostalgia and wants to do the stories again to level up your character, or you're a new player and you want to experience them chronologically or something, and every single time, without fail, it somehow broke. Let's say you enter the Legion timeline. Even though you've somehow
so befitting
transported
of World
to
of
this new
Warcraft.
dimension, you
A
are
20-year-old
really
game
not
that still can't
transported
function even
anywhere.
remotely
All the
well.
exclamation points and the quests of the current timeline are still there, waiting for you to fuck it all up. The battle for Azeroth needs you so bad, we were willing to time travel backwards with you to ask for your help again. Like, you can really screw your game up. At one point, I had 3 Anduins in Stormwind Keep in different rooms. Cutscenes were...
But that's what I mean! The problem with World of Warcraft storytelling is that they only care about the hyperbolicness of each individual expansion. There is no forethought. Every time they've ever written out a story for an expansion, they only care about what's happening in that specific story. They have no thought about what comes down the line in terms of the broad strokes of things. So that eventually, like, what the problem is, the people who were in, like, Cataclysm, the story writers of Cataclysm were like, so what are we going to do in, like, 3 expansions? And they thought to themselves, you know what? That's a future Blizzard problem. That's not a modern Blizzard problem. That's a future Blizzard problem. Well, unfortunately, it's now that future Blizzard. And future Blizzard are cursing the people who made Cataclysm. And Warlords of Draenor being, fucking, we were so stupid back then. I can't believe we have to deal with the consequence of our actions. Fuck.
Playing so out of order, and I had no idea what was going on. I was paralyzed. And not to mention, when you do pick a new timeline to experience, you're often phased, which means you're only going to see other players that are also in your timeline, which is usually, even in the most populated servers, nobody. You are alone. You have just transformed.
And that's how you turn a massively multiplayer online game into a single-player game. And that is the biggest problem with World of Warcraft, is that modern World of Warcraft feels like a single-player game. The reason why I prefer Classic, the reason why I'll play Final Fantasy XIV over retail World of Warcraft is because when I play a massively multiplayer online role-playing game, I want to be able to socialize with people and not feel like I've just paid $15 a month for a fucking multiplayer game masquerading as a single-player game! Piece of... Can't believe I've spent over $15,000 of my money on this subscription service.
Into a single player video game. It's one thing to play an MMO like it's single player, but when you literally see nobody else and it feels like an actual single player game in this giant universe, feels creepy. It actually made me miss seeing Moonguard Goldshire. Seeing that place empty was weird. I really did try Chromia. I was excited to try because I did want to experience all these expansions. I waited a long time to play World of Warcraft. I wanted to know the stories. And even if I did have a smooth Chromie experience, it was still an MMO expansion. Nobody remembers experiencing those things without other people around them.
Modern Alexstrasza is so weak sauce. Like, what did they do to her? Like, I want to point out, this is the biggest egregious thing they've ever done. Look at how sexy she was. Look at how beautiful she was. I mean, her new design is fine. But I suppose they've got to pander to the China. I miss when World of Warcraft had sex appeal and didn't have fruit in place of all the fruitiness. But hey, that's just a me thing.
People discovering new areas at the same time, fighting new mobs at the same time, going into new dungeons and raids together for the first time, having their world at the time changed in a major way. There's a lot more.
This thing right here, this kind of shit right here is why I still love WoW to this day. Like, especially the Shadowlands cinematic, the level of hype around this kind of stuff blows my mind. I remember seeing this and all my friends around me losing their minds when they saw Sylvanas breaking the crown, the domination crown.
More to the Warcraft story than just facts.
Even
on
if the expansion was a pile of shit.
This is one of the biggest gaming universes ever created, and the story goes far beyond just the NPCs and the areas being put into the game. There was stuff that wasn't added by the devs. There's something about
you guys remember going to midnight releases, the game launches? You guys remember people camping out in front of like GameStop to get a hold of Call of Duty, the new Call of Duty at midnight? Man, we live in different times now.
By the devs. There's something about being a part of that expansion as it happens that just can't be told. Unless you start releasing the expansions again. But even then, it's not going to be the same.
Classic.
I am
Plus
a hero.
was
I'm a
amazing.
champion. How did I earn these titles? Don't worry about it. They wouldn't be calling me that if it weren't true, would they? What? You can do a lot at level 10. I talk about this whole hero concept a lot because I personally believe that players...
Here's the problem, and I know exactly what he's going to talk about. How can you be the hero of mankind, the ultimate savior of the galaxy, when everyone else around you is the ultimate hero of mankind and the savior of the galaxy? Wow, you're the one! You are the one! Along with the other 5,000 ones that are around you.
Should not be that. I think that's kind of boring. It's predictable, it's linear, it's just not relatable. Most people do like 2 heroic things in their life, and after they do it, no one's calling you a champion. You just go home to the same house, making the same money. Your boss doesn't think you're a hero because you clocked in late. When I walk into Stormwind Castle and talk to whoever may be king at the time, I want them to look at me with no trust and no faith, no matter what I've done in the past. I want the king to feel like they are rolling the dice every time they send me on an important mission.
My classic
earning
WoW
ranks or titles.
you are
the title
nobody.
of champion doesn't make me hit harder, does it? Don't call me a champion, just get me a cooler sword. But yeah, you're just by default a hero. I went in and tested this because I was really curious how you're supposed to be inducted into this title. When you start out and you go to the tutorial island, they're calling you recruit. You know, you just got here, you've done nothing.
Bold new recruit.
Recruit. All right, recruit. Recruit. Good to see you, recruit.
When you finish the tutorial and you get dropped off at Stormwind, There's two ways you can go about it. There's a continue tutorial route, and then there's a skip tutorial route. If you continue on the tutorial route, they'll still refer to you as recruit. If you skip the rest of the
But the
tutorial,
reason why they'd never refer to me as recruit, because I got the skills, baby. I could go to the top of Blackrock Mountain. I could throw Deathwing off the top of that bitch and become king of the world, baby. Because I'm just that strong.
you are now
Wait,
a hero
Bye-bye, Deathwing.
immediately. Something you have no idea about has happened between you walking across the bridge into Stormwind. You've done something
Very true.
very significant, apparently. No matter which way you went, as soon as you get to Koltiris, you are again a champion hero guy. The recruit thing
You know what the word for this is?
abandoned entirely.
Consistency.
It actually became like a bit as
World
I
of
was
Warcraft
playing
has
through the
no
story
consistency.
of everyone looking up to me and claiming I've done these amazing things as if they've got the wrong guy. It kind of made the story a little funny. It's not the way they intended it to play out.
Again, old Blizzard problems becoming modern.
Battle of Azeroth.
Old
It was
Blizzard
honestly pretty
issues
cool.
becoming
Didn't
modern Blizzard
understand a
problems.
singular thing happening. The initial cutscene of Jaina being arrested by her mom. I don't know what Jaina did. I don't know the story. I even tried looking it up. I don't-
Real quick question: who here actually knows who Jaina Proudmoore is? When you start throwing names and characters at someone, they better have some kind of like relevancy and importance. Because if they don't, you're just going to be confused.
I don't think I found what I was looking for. You're just supposed to know this terrible thing that Jaina Proudmoore did to her mother and all her people because she got arrested.
Like, I
That
thought I was
enough
really in
proof,
tune with
but I
World of
liked
Warcraft's story, but
Koltiris.
even
think
I
that
had
it
no
a
idea
lot
what
of
Jaina
pretty
Proudmoore was doing.
places. Each section of it has its own wacky shit show going on that you are suddenly responsible for fixing. A lot of the characters were really goofy. I liked a lot of their dialogue. It was a nice change up from Classic because they figured out a way to make these fetch and kill quests more immersive. Every fetch and every kill felt like it served a purpose. One of the first things you do is infiltrate a bad guy camp and save children from being child labor slaves. You're going and interacting with something a certain amount of times, but you're saving children, and you went and
Yeah,
got
save those
intel,
children.
and you fought
But you
little
can use
bosses
them as
in there. It felt
sacrifices
more
later.
quest-like, and also I got to shoot a cannon down at pirates like it was 1944 Normandy Beach. Which was awesome. There was also a part where I got to do some crazy stuff in a robot. That was cool. It kept crashing my
Oh
game.
yeah. By the way, enjoy your fantasy game with mechs.
But it was cool while I did get to do it. I got some witch hunter
Again,
people
consistency.
together. I raided
The game's got a
witch
very
town.
confused
That was
theme
cool.
these days.
There was good little mini stories here and there. There was some like war thing happening where you go and invade a little
He's not even
islands. I
talking
didn't
about the
really understand that
galactic
part
issue
too
of
much,
power
but
creep.
it gave me rewards.
How there's always a
sometimes.
bigger
Even though I
evil.
leveled multiple characters through the Battle of Azeroth, I never
Like-
got to finish it because the leveling happens so fast.
How do you
that
feel even
you only get
remotely
to
immersed
help out,
in a
like, some of
universe
the
where
villages before
the
you're
threat
level
is on a
60,
literal
and everything just
galactic
feels
and
pointless.
reality-bending
I wanted to leave.
issue?
Everything just feels very drawn out because you know that you can leave at any time and start something cooler. And not to mention, as soon as you hit 60, you are again bombarded with NPCs you've never met, begging you to return to Stormwind and start the dragon quests. They're way cooler than what you're doing now.
Oh no!
Koltiris can
You
figure
solved
out
that one
all
big
the rest of
problem.
the stuff on
Hey,
their
you
own.
saved
I'm
the
sure they'll be
universe. Can you
fine.
do it
Just
again?
come on home.
Oh, you saved the universe 4
Dragonflight,
times?
The most
Well,
recent
what's the 5th
expansion,
time?
I don't understand it at all. It's filled with a bunch of characters that I don't know.
Like, at what point do you acknowledge that if this is the 15th time the universe has been at threat of total annihilation, at what point do you just realize, you know what, maybe we just shouldn't, maybe we just need to stop trying? Like, this universe is clearly a doomed timeline. The fact that we've had how many global catastrophes at this point?
floating rhinos. I didn't get to experience a lot of Dragonflight. I don't know. I wasn't really into it. That's about all the story I experienced. I hope Koltiris will be all right. I deserted them and didn't do the thing I deserted them for. So, probably not the best guy in their eyes. I had a lot of fun with the WoWs. The World of Warcrafts. It's plural. But what I am most looking forward to is how they move forward with Season
Yes.
of Discovery. It's their chance to redo the
Season of,
timeline.
I think
When
the
you
only
have the
real opportunity for WoW at this point
to
is Season of
literally
Discovery.
time travel, you should probably take the opportunity. Imagine getting to make World of Warcraft again. Classic Plus has the biggest appeal to me because All the stuff I was talking about with not getting to experience the
But the next retail
expansions
expansion might be
and
fun, but
just kind of feeling out of the loop. This is the opportunity to create
War Within could
a new
be good, but I don't have my
timeline
hopes
that
up.
everybody,
I have to
veteran
earn my
and
respect
new players,
again. They've
get to
cashed in
experience
far
together.
too much of
Releasing old
their
expansions
loyalty.
doesn't really do this. But
Have-
releasing
must have faith
brand
in them
new
anymore.
expansions or areas that have never been experienced by anybody before, that's the way to do it. It's taken a long time for WoW to figure out what is a smart move. Classic
Oh
Plus
boy.
really does look like the future of World of Warcraft. So I think my final verdict here, if you're a new player looking to try World of Warcraft, if you're playing with your buddies who are just as committed as you are, look to the two classic options.
Yes.
Kind of balance out which one you
I
want.
entirely
One's a
agree
little
with this.
faster, one's a little more grindier, but more
If
rewarding. If you're
here's
by
the
yourself,
thing. If you're gonna play retail WoW, just play Final Fantasy XIV. It's a much better experience for that kind of thing you're going for.
try retail because there is a lot more opportunity with story. I personally did go in and try those original Elwyn Forest Westfall quests, and they really did polish a lot of that stuff. And maybe you'll have more luck than I did. Maybe you're a lot more competent than me.
I
at
love this video.
setting
This is
Chromie up
good.
and following the storylines. That's all I got on it. I think it was a good time. Now, if you'll
Yeah.
excuse me, I have a party to attend.
Yeah, dude! Goldshire, let's go, baby! This is where I'm gonna go. You know, I'm resubbing. I'm in this video and I hate it. I'm in this video and I hate it. God damn it! This guy's editing style is amazing. Please point out the reason you hate this video. I'm in this and I hate it. I hate it. I hate it. These are those who don't play World of Warcraft. You're like, what's wrong with this picture? Nothing. Absolutely nothing wrong with this picture. These guys in the corner, they're just having a long discussion about their tax returns. They are definitely not having steamy, raunchy ERP in the DMs. He looks as awkward as I do going to modern nightclubs. Okay, that was pretty funny. Guys, if you like this, please go watch the original. Please go like the original. Go subscribe to this guy. He's funny. He's put a lot of effort into it. This might be one of the best World of Warcraft like analysis videos I've seen ever. So please go watch the original. Go like it and stuff and subscribe to him. And yeah, let me know what you guys think about all this. Do you guys still play World of Warcraft? Is it something you're still interested in? I don't know. I mean, I don't fucking care. I just play games that activate my neurons. And I guess I'll see all of you guys next video. Bye!